Today's recruiting professionals are no strangers to tech buzzwords like tweet, friend request, or follow. With increasing frequency, talent managers are urged to get on board with Web 2.0 or risk being left behind. But is it as simple as starting a Twitter account to post jobs? In a recent HCI webcast sponsored by FutureStep, talent management consultants Dustin Can of the Newman Group and Jeremy Roberts of FutureStep recently discussed how to bridge the gap between the vision of fully integrated Web 2.0 platforms and building the strategy and execution needed to deliver upon this vision and measure its results.
So what is the promise of social networking in a talent acquisition or talent management organization? A couple of quick points. It's an inexpensive method for communicating. You see communication channels that just don't cost much. In most cases, social platforms are actually free at their point of entry, with potentially some expense when you get into premium services, or more than likely expense in terms of resources and time that you spend actually setting up and maintaining these programs. It's immediate access to the people you want to hire, immediate access to people who know the people that you want to hire, rather than waiting for other processes to kick in to start communicating with people. You're actually able to utilize social tools to get the message out there right away. All right, so with those things in mind, how do we actually implement social media as part of your talent acquisition program once we know that we need to start with strategy before we just start playing with toys? So step one, start with strategy. I'm going to keep hitting this point as we go through, having a good understanding of what it is you're trying to accomplish. And it may come as an initial shock, but we're not starting with talent acquisition strategy. Our recommendation is to start with your corporate strategy, your business unit goals, the commitments that your CEO has made to the board of directors and to shareholders, the things that really on the surface have nothing to do with talent acquisition. All right, so step two, gauge realistic commitment levels. How much time are you willing to invest? With the majority of the social networking tools that we're talking about today, the real investment is in time. And not just time to create a Twitter account and start tweeting, because on the surface that's a fairly quick thing to do. But how much time are you willing to invest proactively building a community of followers or fans or participants? How much time are you willing to invest developing content for blogs, for video blogs, for these different types of channels? Understanding your goals is only the first step. But before you can actually implement one of these successfully, you need to know what you're willing to do.
All right, guys. So now, after you've developed a strategy and engaged commitment levels, it's time for the fun part, which is picking the tools. This is something that if you're not careful with, you can get lost in and lose a lot of time. But we're going to go over right now some of the primary things out there and kind of give you an idea where each one of these fall. And then from there, you can start to explore which ones are going to best suit your organization and the plans that you've got. We'll start with the microblogs. The microblogs are, the Twitters, Plurks, and Tumblrs of the world. Those are places where people are sharing very small bits of text information as well as links to other articles and other things of interest to their communities. The next one are the big ones, the blogs. There's WordPress and Blogger, two of the most active, but there are a lot of people that play in this place, in this space, like Zanga and LiveJournal. So, all of those blogs have different features that may or may not be important to you or your organization. So, obviously look into those and see which ones are going to fit best with what you've got going on. The next is the really fun one, where all of us typically are familiar with one, if not a few of these, are the social networks. Facebook being the biggest right now, and then LinkedIn is obviously the large one for talent acquisition and recruiting, because that's mostly a professional network. Then we've got the video platforms like YouTube. YouTube is the biggest out there right now, but there are also another There are quite a few that have a little different emphasis, such as Vimeo. Vimeo is one that uploads very high quality HD video. So a lot of people, if you're working in production or the creative community, typically you'll find those people putting their work on Vimeo just due to the quality and the amount of content that it will hold. So that's a basic overview of the tools that we're going to be working with. So as we get to the next step, we've developed our strategy. We know the goals that we're working to achieve. We pick the tools. Now it's time to implement. So as we move into that phase, you want to be sure to consider your audience and what's going to be meaningful to them. If you're a healthcare organization in a community, obviously, you're going to want to share information that's going to help improve their quality of life, get them access to information on the latest studies, latest white papers about different pharmaceuticals, et cetera, things that would interest them and keep them coming back to check for updated content. Keep the deaths from gathering. This is something that is very important. You want to make sure that when you are setting up a program that's going to go to all of these places at once, that you are structured in a way that's going to allow you to follow up on that and reply to any comments or questions that arise from those networks. You're going to have different followers on every one of these: Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, that may or may not have questions, and they're reading that content at their chosen location, so they're going to be posting questions for responses on each of those networks. So before you set this up, you want to make sure that you have someone in your organization that's going to be responsible for looking at those every day, just to make sure that any questions are being answered and any concerns are addressed. Now, the next big thing that the leadership are probably thinking is, how do you measure this? Now, when you talk about social media, sometimes it is a little harder to measure with your HR metrics. So, we're going to be integrating tools to measure the effectiveness of these campaigns with, the traditional HR metrics, as well as things that are typically used more for marketing purposes. One of the things we recommend is using tools like Google Analytics to track the source of visits to your blog and your homepage, your website. It will tell you, okay, I had 300 hits that all came from Twitter this week, or I had 100 that came from Facebook. So that will allow you to see, where your followers are coming from and track the effectiveness of each of your posts.